The Lord be with you, with your spirit. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. One day when they were together in Galilee, Jesus said to his disciples, "The Son of Man is going to be handed over into the power of men. They will put him to death, and on the third day he will be raised to life again." And a great sadness came over them. When they reached Capernaum, the collectors of the half shekel came to Peter and said, "Does your master not pay the half shekel?" "Oh, yes," he replied, and went into the house. But before he could speak, Jesus said, "Simon, what is your opinion? From whom do the kings of the earth take toll or tribute? From their sons or from foreigners?" And when he replied, "From foreigners," Jesus said, "Well then, the sons are exempt. However, so as not to offend these people, go to the lake and cast a hook. Take the first fish that bites, open its mouth, and there you will find a shekel. Take it and give it to them for me and for you." The Gospel of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Praise be to you, Lord Jesus Christ. Here in the Holy Family Parish, we have the Spanish Mass on Saturdays at 4 o'clock. And these days in the pandemic, they've been having it in the hall. But before that, they used to always obviously have it in the church. And one of the initial weeks that I came over here, I wanted to see how the Spanish Mass was, because they're a very lively community, a very vibrant and lively community. And so I came into the church and I had my jacket on, but I was sitting at the last pew at the corner. So in case I needed halfway through to walk out, I could walk out. But I sat over there, and after the homily, the offertory came, and so we had the offertory bag here. We pass around the offertory bag, and the offertory bag was being passed around, and that's when the person next to me passed on the offertory bag to me. It was an elderly gentleman, and I kind of put out my hand to say, it's okay. I had my jacket on, so he didn't see my collar, but my jacket was completely on. But he kept pushing it towards me, and I kept trying to push it away. And then he looked at me very sternly, and that's when I realized I'm not escaping from this. And I didn't have any money on me, so I just put my hands near my pocket to feel if at all there's something that I could put in. And I was very lucky that there was a $2 coin inside my pocket. I took and put that into it. Well, ultimately that whole collection comes into the presbytery any which ways. But it felt kind of a bit awkward being in your own parish and then having to take something from your pocket and put it into the collection box, because I've never been sitting on that side. I usually stand over here. In today's gospel passage, the question about Jesus paying the temple tax kind of comes about. Now, the temple tax was something that's there in the scriptures. It was there from the Old Testament onwards. The half shekel. We have a first reference to it is in Exodus chapter 30, verse 13 onwards, where God tells Moses to take the collection. And then there's a specific reference to why that collection was taken in 2 Kings chapter 12, verses 4 onwards. 2 Kings chapter 12, verses 4 and 5. Jehoash said to the priests, "All the money offered as sacred donations that is brought into the house of the Lord, the money for which each person is assessed, the money from the assessment of persons, and the money from the voluntary offerings brought into the house of the Lord, let the priests receive from each of the donors, and let them repair the house wherever any need of repairs is discovered. So that is why the half shekel was taken. The temple tax was taken so that the temple could be maintained. Now here we read about Peter having gone outside, and Peter seems to be targeted. When they come to Peter, Jesus is not around, but they come to Peter and they ask him, "Does your master pay the temple tax?" Peter seems to be the kind who can get bullied very easily, because we read when Jesus is arrested, he's bullied by a slave girl who comes up to him when he's by the fire and asks him, "You were also with that man, weren't you?" And at that time, Peter said a lie. And Peter said, "No, I was not. I don't even know the man." But I think Peter has that problem, because here, even in the gospel, it says, Peter immediately responded and said, "Yes, he does." Does he pay the tax? Yes, he does. But when we read further, Peter walks into the house and there's a conversation between Jesus and Peter. Peter, who pays the tax, the children or the others? So we can kind of infer that maybe Jesus wasn't paying that tax. And this is the first time there's a conversation between Peter and Jesus about this. So we are not sure if Jesus was paying that tax or not paying that tax, but Jesus does tell, so that they are not offended, then go and put a hook. You'll get the first fish, take the coin, pay it for you and for me. So this kind of seems like as though Jesus hasn't done this before, or he hasn't done this with Peter before. Either one of the two. But this is the first time that kind of a discussion has kind of cropped up. So Peter, in order to defend the Lord, tells the people, yes, he pays his tax. And then there is Jesus telling him, but give that half shekel so that they are not offended. So why did these temple tax collectors target Jesus? What did they intend when they asked Peter, "Does your master pay the tax?" They obviously wanted to find out if Jesus was faithful to the temple. Because when you pay your temple tax, it seems to give the message that you're faithful to the temple. So they wanted to find out, was Jesus faithful to the temple? And that's when Jesus tells Peter, give it to them so that they are not offended. But Jesus says so clearly, it is not the children, it is others who pay the tax. Now, this temple was built in honor of his Father. And they are asking Jesus to pay the tax for the temple that was built in honor of his Father. So what Jesus intends over here when he says, let them have it? He's not saying that we don't have to pay that temple tax. Let them have it. Because the temple tax is meant for maintaining that physical structure that is made in honor of God. The money is meant for that. But the heart is meant for the honor of the one in whose honor this temple was made. The heart is meant for God. Jesus didn't tell, don't pay the temple tax. And that's the same over here. When we give our thanksgiving or we do our tithing, we are helping to maintain the structure. The temple we have built in honor of God. But how do we honor God? Not with that tithe. We don't honor God with that thanksgiving. We honor God with our lives. We honor the one in whose honor we have made this temple, made this church, by the way we live our lives. That is where it comes from the heart. And that is why Jesus keeps saying in Matthew chapter 6, verse 21, the Lord would say, Matthew 6, verse 21. Where the treasure is, there your heart will also be. For where your treasure is, there your heart will also be. So where is our treasure? If our treasure is in God, our heart is all about honoring God. So though we do put in our contributions, though we make beautiful churches and physical structures, we honor God with our heart. We honor the one in whose honor we have created all of this. We have built all of this. In 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 31. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 31. In all that we do, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do everything for the glory of God. So how I live my life is the way I honor the one in whose honor I have made this temple. Not just through my tithe or through my thanksgiving, but through my life. My life is supposed to honor God. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 20. 1 Corinthians 6, verse 20. For you were bought with a price, therefore glorify God in your body. Through my body, through my actions. First Peter chapter 3, verse 15. In our hearts, sanctify Christ as Lord. So all through the way I act, the way I speak, when I step out of this church, that is where I'm glorifying God. The way I'm living my life. Let's ask the Lord to give us this grace that we be so conscious and aware of this as we go through the day. Not just during this moment of the sacrifice of the Eucharist, but also when we step out. That is where we are honoring the God in whose name and in whose honor we have created and built this temple of God. Let's close our eyes for a moment. Lord, we are your children. And whatever we do, whatever we speak, how we converse, what we say, what we think, let it all give honor to you, Lord. Let my life, my heart, my mind, and my soul give honor to you. I thank you for the blessing and graces of the churches we have. And in humility, we offer what we need to offer to maintain these churches. But Lord, my heart is for the honor of the one in whose honor we have made these churches. Accept